Bon's Burgers, a restaurant from the 70s that focuses on bringing a unique experience with its animatronics. But behind the friendly mask of this company, there are tragic stories and troubled souls. Welcome to the tragic story of the WALTEN Files. I'm Sir Chris. I explore the internet and I make videos about it. It all starts with an introduction tape for new employees at Bon's Burgers. As a support technician, we are responsible for maintaining the magical and fun experience of the restaurant through cleaning and maintenance of the animatronics, being them Bon, Shaw, Buzu, and Benny. Behind this genius idea were two founders, Jack Walton and Felix Kranken, who made their goals very specific. In BSI, the most important thing to us is not the money or the rating. The most important thing is that you have a wonderful experience while working with us. The tape advances in time, more specifically, weeks after they opened on June 28th of 1974. It shows us a specific and crucial area to the development of this story. The BSI storage facility, also known as K9, is a company project to store all valuable items from the closed for good Bon's Burgers restaurant, given the situations about the incidents of 1974. A short animation starts, which tells us the story of Bon's sleepover, that from a pleasant experience quickly becomes a mystery, because there's a presence that interferes with the rest of the animation, in the friends list, on the cover of the movie, and even on the television. While sleeping, Bon wakes up due to a noise in the kitchen. Upon seeing what it was, we noticed that the presence was actually Jack Walton, who disappeared on June 11th of 1974. At the end of the first episode, we see the vision of Brian Steels, the new employee on his first day at work. He was in charge of seeing if the animatronics still worked. After going through old photos of the team, he starts the test. Until halfway through, Bon starts to move on his own, and bleeds from the eyes. Then a chase happens, until Brian is caught by Bon, and the end we already know. He thought I was her. Remember this, her. 4 years later, Felix, the last founder, has the brilliant idea of reprogramming all the animatronics by himself and opening the whole restaurant in another city, in which they shows us his progress with many examples, that in the middle, a disturbing face appears. The mighty rabbit tries to find a way out of the cage, but it's unsuccessful. The rabbit needs to catch the owner's attention. The rabbit is starving. Susan Woodings, last seen on June 30th of 1974. These phrases want to replicate the tragic way in which Susan lost her life. I will elaborate more when we get there. Inside K9, Shaw guides us, as it was huge and we would easily get lost. In main storage, we get an inverted message, which when we reverse it, it becomes: Rosemary would go to the restaurant every night, hoping that her beloved husband would reappear after being missing for weeks, but no response. Until one day, she heard a voice saying, "I know where he is, Rosie," coming from the backstage. When she goes to the backstage, she sees Bon, who discovers her and places her inside the animatronic Shaw. For the project Relocate, 3 technicians have only 3 days to enter the bunker and recover as much as they can, being them Hillary, Ashley, and Kevin. At the end of those 3 days, they weren't successful, as the animatronics were heavily damaged. On the last night before they leave, Ashley starts exploring the bunker and the absurd amount of rooms alone. In a particular room, she finds a new animatronic, Billy the Clown, who had a cassette player. Upon finding a bizarre cassette, which coincidentally had the date of Jack's disappearance, she puts it inside of Billy. When it starts, a birthday song plays, until we hear the names.
Jack, Susan, Charles, Rosemary, Sophie.
And then Bon enters the room and kills Ashley. Bunny Farm tells us a lot about the troubled souls behind this company, in which Jack's daughter starts to remember and understand what really happened in 1974. You finally start to remember that old doll. Bunny Farm takes place on a special day at the restaurant, the Fruit Festival, in which the protagonists forget about the fruits. But luckily, Pete saves the day. In exchange for a favor, we help him on his farm. Sophie starts to play the mini games. The first was Billy's, where we had to get the gifts with mysterious pictures. To get the last one, she had to win in tic-tac-toe. By doing so, she receives the last gift that had Ashley's face. And after more macabre visuals, she couldn't take it and leaves. In the next day, she continues where she left off. The next one was Benny's minigame. After Benny being clumsy, we had to look for the pigs that had run away. And to bring them back, she needed 3 keys. That in the middle of the puzzle appears the painful end of Susan Woodings. When she tries to fix Bon, he... I am still alive, but I can't move, and I'm having trouble breathing, and my stomach feels weird. The phrase, "the rabbit is starving," is meant to replicate the fact that she probably died from hunger. So much so, that by putting her inside Benny, we could see that she was still alive. In the diary of Linda Thompson, Felix X, we managed to see the elephant in the room. Felix was alcoholic. So much so, that it ruined their relationship, and later on, his future. Throughout the other minigames, the disturbed souls fell throughout macabre and striking visuals, the tragic fate of everyone, including Sophie's brother and sister. Finally, the most important minigame, the Fountain of Memories, in which it promises to remind you of any obscure and forgotten memory. Sophie chooses the red children.
Be wary, for this memory seems to be buried deep within your mind. You must find them, Sophie.
And it shows the last call between Jack and Felix, where Jack asks for a favor, which was to take his children to a school party, and Felix did. But when it was time to bring them back, that is where the story takes a different turn. That same night, Felix took advantage of the party to drink, but he still wanted to take them home. Little did he know that that decision would turn his life upside down. Wounded and completely scared, he quickly buries Jack's children, who have died instantly after the crash. He sits down on the floor and starts recording a tape, so he won't forget what happened that night.
I messed up. I have a problem. Because I know I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll think this was all just a nightmare. That Molly are okay. They were just children. Jack. Oh God, what am I gonna tell Jack? He would be devastated. Jack's been the best friend I've ever had. I'd never do that to him. When that accident occurred, I just panicked and I buried him in the forest. I can't remember where I buried him. What am I gonna do now? The restaurant's gonna open next month.
They are gone, but not for long. They end up possessing Rocket, the grey plushie, which ends up guiding Sophie during this memory. Sometimes, the story isn't about a cold, ruthless killer. Sometimes, it's just people who made huge mistakes, and now they don't have a choice. And this is where the new pages come in. I already mentioned the old ones, but these are new. Find JackWalton.com. The homepage had the Old Spawn's Burgers website, which Jack and Rosemary were on the front of the webpage, while stating that they were closed forever. When we click on the Meet Bon button, a stage appears, with the curtains closed. When we click on Contact and Information, A photo appears with a censored door, which in the link had the date of Charles' disappearance. The last button shows us 6 audios from a caretaker named Richie. The first 3 were made before the restaurant opened, but it all starts to get interesting from the 4th audio on. The 4th audio talks about Bon being fixed by Felix. The fact that Rosemary comes to the restaurant every night to ask about Jack, in which Felix creates a new rule, which permanently bans anyone who creates drama inside the company. In this case, Rosemary was making drama. The fact that the backstage would be closed during that week without any explanation. And for last, Benny will be away for a few days. But the last one put an end to this story.
We're down. It's fucking bad, dude. We're shutting down. We're done. 4 in the morning, I get a call from Norman, right, telling me the cops broke into the place, right? Some call about, like, screaming inside the fucking restaurant. Whole neighborhood was freaked out. Norman's shutting us down. You know, everyone's outside the fucking restaurant, claiming somebody got killed.
Okay, let's put this chronologically. Everything started with the crash that killed Ed and Molly in May 2nd of 1974, in which the first 3 minutes of the first tape were created to teach all employees of Bon's Burgers, which later the company asks the employees to get to know each other. Then Richie's first audio was created. On June 11th of 1974, Jack disappears, and 7 days later, an infestation happens on the restaurant that is mentioned by Richie's second audio. And the 3rd audio mentions a usable Bond costume. Now, what caused the infestation is up to you. The restaurant finally opens its doors on June 28th of 1974, which 2 days later, Susan disappears and Benny is placed on the backstage. Which is why, in audio 4, it mentions the fact that the backstage was closed without any reason being given, since Felix had to clean Bon and Benny. So much so, that in audio 5, they mention that Bon's gloves are always falling off. Charles disappears on July 14th of 1974, and 6 days later, Rosemary enters the backstage, due to the false hope that someone gave. When she enters the backstage, she dies to Bon, and her screams freaked out the neighborhood. The police storms the restaurant, and Richie creates the 6th and final audio, and the restaurant closes for good. From here, enter the bunker. The animatronics are taken there, and years later, Felix starts the plan from tape 2, the relocate plan. For that, he calls Hillary, Ashley, and Kevin to try to recover as much as they can, but they are unsuccessful. The last night curiosity drove Ashley to her death, where Bon killed her, thinking she was Sophie, as told by the obscure cassette. Years go by, and after the second failed attempt, Felix hires another employee, Brian, where on his first day, he's sent to K9 to perform a movement test on the animatronics. That when Bon moves by himself and bleeds from the eyes, Brian gets the hell out of there, until he's caught by Bon. And 5 days later, we have Sophie playing Bunny Farm, where the troubled souls affect the machine to make Jack's daughter remember memories. And more, now she knows what happened that year. WALTEN Files is not over yet, and luckily, Felix is running out of time. But now, only on the next episode.